Um, it may or may not be. You may be overdoing it a bit. You know, I mean, you went from doing very little to spending somewhere between an hour and 3 hours with me every day, which is a lot. Um, yeah, on days where well, I don't know. Let's give it a go. Let's try it and see how you do. And if it helps, then it helps. And if it doesn't help, it doesn't help. The other thing is when you first start training in meditation and you start making a bit of progress, your senses become way sharper. And so it's easier for your mind to get overstimulated by the world because you're just not used to your mind having that much input. It's like upgrading your camera to HD, and all of a sudden you can see everyone's little forehead lines and all the stuff and the birthmark, and and you go, whoa. So it's kind of like that. Marco, it's common for me to feel too sleepy during meditation sessions. Is there a better push through? Is it better to push through the sleepiness or listen to the body's needs? Okay, that depends. That depends. So if you're sleepy because you're not sleeping properly, then fix your sleep. You know? If you can't fix your sleep, then just do your best to carry on doing your practices. But if you're getting tired during a session, that's actually a sign that you're making progress. So for the first year or so, one of the things that can happen, amongst the two major things that can happen, is that you can start to feel very tired and very sleepy during meditation, and sometimes even fall asleep on your cushion. And I've talked to my teachers about this. Yeah, I mean, it could be due to bad sleep quality. But talking to my teachers about this, there's a couple reasons for this. One is that the only other time that you know of personally from your ordinary experience where your mind calms down as much as it might calm down in meditation is when you're heading to bed, when you're about to fall asleep. And so when you start to calm the mind down a little bit, your mind just carries on and falls asleep. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is that, well, maybe it's not that important to understand how and why it all works, but in any case, it's very common that when you're trying to keep your mind in a concentrated state, that it can sort of sink, and the lucidity or sharpness of it can decline while you're in the process of trying to gain the initial stages of concentration. And so in the techniques that we use, I try to combat that by giving you two techniques early on that keep the senses very sharp and fresh through using other types of cognitive skills at the same time. And this recommendation comes through in a manner of speaking from the Gelug Tibetan tradition. One of their great yogis said, if you combine analytic meditation with your concentration meditation earlier on in the process, then you don't get as sleepy. So this is part of why we do body scanning meditation, for example. Also, if you learn to open the sense gates, that makes your mind incredibly bright, as Cleric was saying. Good. As Cleric was saying, when your mind starts to get more and more and more bright, and you're not used to your cognitive level being that intense and that fresh all the time, it can actually be overstimulating for a period of time. So you need a bit of balance. So if you find that you can't even go to the grocery store because you're so overstimulated, you're probably doing too much practice for whatever level you're at. You just scale it back a little bit. So if you're doing 3 hours a day, do 2 hours. If you're doing 2 hours, do 1 hour. If you're doing an hour, do a half an hour, that kind of thing. And then just balance your level. Okay, Marco, let's do some meditation in the style that I do it. Have you followed any of my lives before, or followed them when I've posted them up? I just want to know so I know how much instruction to give. Okay. Good, good, good. Well, we're going to do intensive breath meditation. This should keep the mind nice and lucid, nice and fresh, because we're bringing intense effort to the object of meditation. And then we'll go into a body scan. And the body scanning for you, cleric, should also help to calm down the nervous system from being overstimulated. If you're overstimulated, don't do as much vision and don't do as much hearing, because you're brightening everything. Okay, let's jump right in. So, starting with the breath, place the mind on one of the nostrils, but to figure out which nostril to use, breathe in sort of loudly or intensely. Wherever the mind is drawn to with the most intense sensations, select that patch of skin. Keep 100% of your mind there, except for the little corner of your mind that's going to do the counting. We're going to count from 1 to 7, and then from 7 back down to 0. And for you guys, that might be 3 rounds, 1 to 7, 7 to 0, 3 times. For me, it'll probably be about 1.5. So when you hear me clear my throat, then the session will be over. So place your mind on that patch of skin and begin. Okay. Since a couple people are overstimulated today, take a very short break. Okay, let's go into a body scan. Start with the left foot, left ankle, left calf, knee, thigh, hip, right foot, right ankle, right thigh, right calf rather, right knee, and the thigh. Into the hip, bring the mind to the front of the pelvis, and the back of the pelvis, including the buttocks, find the sacrum, come down to the tailbone. Move forward to the anus, perineum, and at your own pace, do a scan of the genitals. Rest your mind on the tip of the genitals. Bring the mind to the lower abdomen, the front of the waist, the back of the abdomen, the back of the waist, now the diaphragm belt, and diaphragm belt in the back, the chest in the front, and the chest in the back. Top of the left shoulder, front, left, back, underneath, bicep, elbow, forearm, wrist, palm and back of hand, thumb, pointer, middle, ring, pinky, top of the right shoulder, front, side, back, armpit, bicep, elbow, forearm, wrist, palm and back of hand, thumb, pointer, middle, ring, pinky, move to the bottom third of the neck, cleric. Since you said you're overstimulated, take a little bit of extra time. Place your mind on the lower third of the neck and the triangle between your shoulder blades, that whole diamond shape. Just rest your mind there. Now up to the middle third of the neck. The upper third of the neck. Back of your scalp. Left side. The right side. Right ear. Left ear. And the forehead. Left eyebrow. Right eyebrow. Nose. Left eye. Right eye. Left cheek. Right cheek. The upper lip area. And the chin. Bring the mind to the top lip. The bottom lip. And the skin inside the mouth. Just become aware of all of your teeth for one moment. Roof of your mouth. Beneath your tongue. And your tongue. To the throat. And to the crown of your head. Now just let your awareness move down your spine until it reaches your lower belly. Don't extend your lower belly. Don't stretch your lower belly. Don't breathe in extra air when you inhale. Just allow your breath to naturally make it all the way down to your belly. And in particular, feel the air in the back side, not the front of the abdomen, but towards the back. Okay. Oh, Marcus, did you stay awake? And Cleric, how do you feel? Yeah. So if your head is still nodding a lot, if you're still nodding in and out, it could either be just the normal process of having to overcome a sense of sleepiness when you're on the cushion. Or it could be that you're just not getting enough sleep. So in one of the videos I put up recently from the Lamrim tradition, Stages of the Path tradition, when they're giving advice on what to do between your meditation sessions, they give, it kind of depends on how you divide it up. I don't know if you saw that, but there's this whole idea basically that between sessions, do your best to be an ethical stand-up person. Because the more you're hurting other people, the more they're going to want to hurt you. Or the more you're hurting other people, the more they're going to take away stuff that you like and that you want. And so your life will become chaotic. And the example that I used was if you lie on a job application, for example, and then you get the job, it's going to be hard to sleep because any day you could lose the job and they'd be right in firing you. And then it might be difficult to find another one. And so the chaos caused by the lie isn't worth the benefit that you get from the lie. And even if you never got caught, you still have to live with the fear. And so this interferes with your eating, with your sleeping, with your peace of mind, and of course, your meditative practice. So ethics is very, very important. Just trying not to hurt other people and trying to benefit people where you can. We could spend a long time talking about ethics, but broadly speaking, if there's some part of you that goes, yeah, I really shouldn't be doing this, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. Unless you have an abnormal conscience, and I do have some acquaintances who have, some kind of abnormal sociopathic issue going on or whatever the case may be, that's one thing. But if you're a relatively normal person, your mind will tell you when it's not a good thing to do. So that's one aspect. Hey, John. Another aspect is, oh, good. Well, this will just be a refresher then. So another important aspect is if you're eating too much or too little, it's going to be difficult to practice, because if you're eating too little, you'll find that you're kind of shaky, you don't have energy, you lose focus. A couple of years ago, I did I think it was an 8-day or 9-day fast, I can't remember, a full fast. And what was quite interesting about that is that towards the end, I would say around day 5 or 6, I found that I had way less energy to do things. But the previous days I had energy. I was fairly normal levels of energy. But days 5 or 6, I started to lose energy. And then as time went on, because I'm aware of my senses, I started to notice that the senses were getting less bright, a bit like watching something on standard definition, like we're doing the live stream tonight. The colors were less bright. It was not quite grainy, but the quality wasn't as good. And then as soon as I had one meal after I broke fast, bang, all the colors came back. Everything was in HD. So if you don't eat enough, then your mind won't have the strength to do everything you could do in meditation. And then obviously, if you don't sleep properly, the last couple of days I've been working pretty hard, working on a new bit of content to give you guys, a new video on responding to a Christian theologian. It's been a while since I put one of those up. And I was up until 4 a.m. the last 2 nights doing random stuff, editing, filming, writing stuff, thinking about stuff. So the quality of my mind today is not very good. So like that, sleep, food, be a gentleman or a gentlewoman, be a relatively productive member of society to the best of your ability. And these things will support your practice. Okay, that's a really, really fascinating subject and a really, really good observation. So the former head of FPMT, the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition, was, in the truest sense of the word, a greatly accomplished meditator and a cave-dwelling yogi. And his name is Lama Zopa Rinpoche. He passed away recently. You can find his obituary. I've recommended other people to read it before because it's so incredible, just as in a conventional sense, so incredible, but obviously also as a practitioner. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche, was famed for never sleeping. And on one occasion, I got to see his home in Santa Cruz. And in his home, his entire room was covered with holy objects and relics from holy beings and offerings of all sorts of kinds. And then he had his meditation cushion, and that was it. There was no bed, no desk, just just a cushion. So once you've attained high levels of meditative concentration, your meditative concentration itself can replace sleep. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche was famed for never sleeping. Occasionally they said that he would be doing some practice and he would nod like this for like 30 seconds or something. Then he would come back up and he would carry on doing his practice in the middle of the night. And went on that way for years until he passed away. Years and years. So one thing that happens if you train in meditation, yeah, I know, it really should. But it wasn't, and now it's too late. So basically, and there's no good scientific data on this stuff, so I have to just wing it and tell you what I think. I don't know for sure. But what it seems like happens is that because ordinarily your mind is so wrapped up, creating images, creating emotions, recalling memory, worrying about the future, imagining the future, worrying about the past, blah, 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 blah. Your mind is so involved with so many things, running. That's a huge amount of energy. It's just a tremendous amount of fuel you have to burn all the time to keep that engine running. And so if you train in meditation and you accomplish really high levels of meditation, I'm talking about if you so desired, that you could sit down for 2 days and just meditate and never break concentration. And there are modern yogis that can still do this. This isn't just some weird thing that's in books or something. There are living people that can still do this. If you can do that, then you can replace your sleep with concentration, because the concentration itself calms down all that activity and the whole system can rest. So, having said all of that, likewise, if you enter into retreat, and I don't know if anyone did, I don't think anyone in this group did retreat with me. If I'm not mistaken, no one in this group did retreat with me for this most recent retreat. But if you go into retreat and you're doing, 8 hours, 10 hours, 16 hours a day of practice, sometimes your sleep will just naturally become less. You're not trying to sleep less, you just don't sleep as much. So all of that is true, but it's not something that you're trying to do. You're not artificially trying to not sleep as much so that you can be more like the yogis. The yogis don't sleep as much because they don't need as much sleep, and they just naturally stay awake because they have these meditative capabilities and because they're doing so much practice. And that's just how it happens. And they're not tired. You see? So that's a very, very important and interesting point. So Cleric recently bought a book that I recommended called Calming the Mind. It's one of the texts that my guru recommended to me when I was first starting out. And General Rinpoche is so interesting. So interesting. He provides such poignant, cogent advice in places that is not as characteristic in the mainstream Gelug tradition as one might hope for. Like, for example, I believe it was in his text, I might be misremembering it, maybe Chuden Rinpoche's text. Chuden Rinpoche is an incredible yogi, spent 20 years in retreat, and was one of my other gurus, Geshe Tenzin Namdak in London, at Jamyang Center in London. That's one of his gurus. So Chuden Rinpoche or General Rinpoche, one of the two who are great retreat accomplishing yogis, recommended that you he said, your arms, if you put them in your lap, you kind of have to hold them up like this a little bit, and that can be distracting. So instead of that, you take a little blanket and you set it in your lap so that the weight of your arms rests in the blanket instead of you having to hold your arms up. It's just a tiny, poignant little thing that can completely change the quality of your meditation, Anyways. Yeah, Jen Rinpoche, I think rightly so, puts a lot of emphasis on those things. But you also have to remember, and I wish someone had explained this to me in the beginning, Genlam Rinpa is writing a text for someone who might wish to enter into retreat for a year, for example, and attain samadhi during that year. So you have to, on the one hand, go, wow, that's incredible. I hope one day I have the chance to do that. But on the other hand, you have to go, how do I take this advice and translate it into a form that I can do right now in my life? Because that's the point. I need to know how to do retreat, but I need to adapt everything possible into stuff that I can do here and now. Reaching samadhi to get consistent, good sleep replacement is my kind of motivation. You know, it's funny because in the beginning, I used to want all sorts of psychic powers, and I wanted to be able to levitate, and I wanted to be able to shoot fireballs out of my hand, or all the other silly stuff, you know. Wanted to be able to sit for long periods of time without sleeping, and like just all the weird stuff. I wanted all of that, even though I was quite skeptical that it could actually be done. On the other hand, I thought, well, if it is real, I want to know how to do that, you know? But then as time went on, I realized the benefits that you get from this practice are so deep, so profound, so worthwhile in and of themselves. There's no reason to chase all that stuff. And according to my teachers and my own experience, to a very, very small degree, I'm not claiming that I have any great capabilities, but to a very small degree, that's been my experience. The more you focus on doing the actual practice and understanding what you're doing, not just sort of winging it, a lot of these things that sound like mythology, let's say, in the beginning, start to become your direct experience. A lot of these things that sound completely impossible and you think, oh, that must be some exaggerated thing, turn out to be exactly what the human mind and human heart and it turns out to be exactly what's possible. I don't think Lam Rinpa would count that as right motivation since it's based on your current life, I think. Okay, so when you're talking about the general Gelug approach to practice, it's very important to consider that they're looking at everything through the prism, right, of Atisha's lamp for the path. Ooh, see? My magic powers, they're coming online. I can feel it. So Jen-Lam Rinpa is talking about the three types of practitioner. And the three types of practitioner are those who are, well, there's a subcategory first. The first type can have one of two types. This is a very classic Buddhist thing. There are three things, but one of them is two things. So the first kind of practitioner can be one of two categories. You're sort of, you're Buddhist, for example, but you don't believe in or accept rebirth, and you just want to do as best you can to have a really good life and be ethical and do your practice with your mind totally absorbed in stuff for this lifetime, but you're still engaged in ethics and meditation and doing all this. You just don't have any motivations that reach beyond this life. The second type of practitioner is one who has motivations that reach beyond this lifetime, and their primary motivation is they want to attain a better rebirth, or not even a better rebirth, but even just another rebirth just like this one, so they can carry on training. The third type is one who doesn't want to have rebirth at all and wants to completely get out of reoccurring out of control rebirths. That's a Theravada practitioner. That's a small scope practitioner or a medium scope practitioner in that way of framing things. And then the great scope practitioner is one who wants to not only attain nirvana for themselves, but attain non-abiding nirvana in which their mind is perfect for their own needs, but then they carry on training towards full awakening, full enlightenment, so that they have additional qualities at their disposal, let's say, that are beneficial for removing the suffering of other beings. So to attain nirvana is to To attain nirvana, you actually need to pass through the first two types of motivation. First, you're going to want to have a good rebirth, because if you don't do it properly this time and you need another one, you need to have accumulated the right kinds of causes to get that one, to be able to get the one that would allow you to attain enlightenment. Am I making sense? I feel like I'm, without enough sleep, I feel like I'm maybe not making sense. Likewise, when you practice renunciation, which is the motivation to attain nirvana, when you practice renunciation as a Mahayana practitioner, you're passing through that motivation towards the desire to attain enlightenment for the sake of all beings, otherwise known as bodhicitta, the mind of awakening. So those are the three kinds of practitioners: the one that is aimed at the next life, the one that's aimed at nirvana, and the one that's aimed at full awakening. Samyak Sambodhi. Unsurpassed full awakening. Yeah, that's the third one. We've got the coolest word. Okay. So there was a question, and now it's completely gone from my mind. Oh, that's right. Okay. So it is the opinion of great yogis that if you're trying to attain full samadhi, probably it's going to be too hard unless you get the ordinary types of concern for this lifetime out of the way, by focusing fully on the benefits that you would get in the next life, for example, by doing these practices as part of a package of practices that lead to enlightenment, or that at least lead to a way better circumstance of rebirth. And the reason for that is it just takes a lot of work and time, If you put in your regular daily practice and put in your regular work, you can get a fair ways down the road. And then the great yogis say, maybe you need 3 or 4 months of retreat, continuous retreat, to attain full samadhi for the first time. And then you can maintain it out of retreat by doing your practice, maintaining your practice. And so, as relatively ordinary people, that's what we're trying to do, is get as far down that path as we can, which will make a huge difference. Since you're probably not going to attain full samadhi out of retreat for the first time, at least, the motivation completely aimed at the next lifetime is, I think, not as important. And as a matter of fact, I think the benefits of samadhi are so profound. If you can just even start to get close to concentration, the benefits are so profound for you. You're going to carry on going, and you're going to want more, and you're going to want to do it deeper. Where the motivation for the next life really helps, even in your normal life, is that during hard times, sometimes you just don't want to do it. So sometimes you don't want to do any more practice. But when that one session is framed in a whole lifetime of working towards these perfections of your mental capabilities, so that you can get the hell out of these horrifically bad rebirths you're in, or get the hell out of this horrifically bad rebirth system you're in, or attain this unbelievable state of omniscience and perfection of good qualities and removal of bad qualities, called the unexcelled full awakening for the benefit of all beings, then, it's much easier to overcome the bad day. Okay. Now here's another important note. There's a lot of stuff you need to do for this life that is a concern for your next life. And it takes a while to figure that out. So you need to have a job, if you can get one in this economy. You need to be able to take care of yourself so that your needs are met in a conventional sense, so that you can do your training. So meeting all of your needs in a conventional sense, which is totally aimed at having food and a house and clothing and normal stuff in this life, all of that is supporting your practice, which is aimed at the next life. So all of this is also aimed at the next life. You see? So taking care of your ordinary stuff for yourself is also can be aimed at the next life. Similarly, in your romantic relationships or relationship, as the case may be, you're just managing that relationship as best you can with the best character you can is also aimed at the next life. Yes, there are huge benefits you get in this life, but if you are managing those relationships well and being a decent human being and being a gentleman or a gentlewoman, then you're accumulating the causes for you to have better relationships in the future, including in the next life. And those relationships will be important, for example, when you need teachers to give you these instructions so that you can carry on and do the practices again. So your karma of having harmonious relationships and putting work and time into your relationships to make them healthy can, in particular, if it's an active motivation in your mind and not just a passive thing, can be aimed at the next life. So there's just a huge amount of stuff that is actually aimed or can be aimed at the next life, even though it looks totally conventional from the outside. Yeah. So Marco says, somewhere in the back of my mind, I wonder if those are real despite the skepticism. So here's what I'll say. I sort of fell headlong into Buddhism because I had done Tai Chi for about 2 years. And then I did a 5-day retreat in the Vipassana tradition. And I went in a business student and member of Pi Kappa Phi fraternity, and all of my interests were 100% about me and what I could get, and chasing women and all this stuff that you do as a young man, or at least when young men in my generation. And I came out, I was completely unrecognizable to my family and friends. I shaved my head. I was celibate, I think, for about 2 years. Didn't drink, didn't smoke anything. I basically came out a monk, and I didn't know what to do with myself. It took me, I think, 5 years to just figure out what to do with what had happened to me there. And that's when I met my teachers, and all of this began to be explained to me. So in terms of the skepticism for all this stuff, here's what I would say. Even though I sort of fell in hard because I had profound experiences, at least relative to my level, I had profound experiences for me at that time. And that gave me a lot of faith that I should just try to keep my mind open to the rest of it, since it actually works. And since it just makes your mind bright and clear and unbiased, or at least way, way, way less biased, I thought, how could people that have minds like that be convinced by a bunch of fantastical, made-up nonsense? Those two things don't actually live together. The fantastical nonsense goes out the door, even if you're just opening the visual gate and you get a sense of the non-duality of vision, or the non-duality of sound, or non-duality of tactile body and tactile sensations, to say nothing of having experiences of consciousness itself. Those things are so far out the window that you've thrown them off the planet. So the idea that people that have minds like that would also be wrapped up in absolute crazy fantasies about deities and rebirths and made up fantastical memories of their own past rebirths, and pretending somehow that they have clairvoyance and can read people's minds when they can't. Those two things didn't fit together, because I couldn't see myself doing any of those things, even with my only slightly improved mental capabilities from being in retreat for 5 days. And so I kept my mind open, and as time went on, I encountered things with my teachers. I encountered things myself. I met people that weren't Buddhist who showed me things that were astonishing. I mean, I'll give you just a funny example of this. So, for some reason, throughout the course of my life, even though I thought that psychic stuff probably wasn't real, I kept ending up in relationships with women who were very psychic. And my wife is like this also. And even now, even with the experiences I've had and everything, sometimes I'll still just do stuff to see if there's something really going on there, or if I'm just sort of being gullible, And so a while ago, I wanted to see if she could really see what was in my mind when we were having certain conversations, or if she couldn't. And so I took her ice cream out of the freezer and I put it in the oven. And the oven was cold, but I just put it in there and I hid it from her at a time when I knew she'd be coming in to get the ice cream. And I was standing in the kitchen and she goes, "Where's the ice cream?" And I said, "I don't know. You tell me." And then I just thought, "It's in the oven." And she goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "I'm thinking of it. You tell me where it is." And she goes, I really don't know. What I'm thinking doesn't make any sense. I said, No. Tell me, what is it?" She goes, "In the oven?" And I said, "Yes." The ice cream is in the oven, a place it absolutely should never, ever, ever be. Anyway, so, there are just dozens and dozens of little things and some much larger things that have happened both to me personally and from interactions with other people where I went, wow, okay. Well, if clairvoyance of some kind, even limited kinds, are real, then maybe some of these other kinds of clairvoyance described in these texts that are accomplished by great meditators who have way more control over their mind than you and I, maybe those are real too. And just to tie those two together, my main teacher in London, Geshe Tenzin Namdak, there are retreat hovels near his monastery, near Sera Monastery. And there was I believe this was a lay person, although I think he was Tibetan, had gone in to do retreat and was trying to attain samadhi. And so I think he had been in there for a couple of months. And he actually attained samadhi. And one of the things that happens when you attain samadhi is you get clairvoyance, and your clairvoyance is reliable. So it's not just off and on and whatever. It's there when you need it. And so he started reading the minds of the other people in the other hovels around him. And the attendants and stuff apparently were getting a kick out of the fact that he knew what everyone in the other hovels was thinking. To give you a little more cogent one, if you look up the happiest monk in the world, I can't remember his name, Venerable Ricard something, he's Italian. There was a time where he was in retreat with one of his teachers, a highly accomplished yogi, and he was doing what's called Vajrasattva purification practice. So Vajrasattva purification practice is generating several states of mind that directly counteract past negative mental habits. And it's way too much to get into right now, but he was doing this practice quite intensively. And then suddenly he remembers that when he was a kid, he used to take BBs and he would shoot muskrats in the swamp behind his house. And he felt absolutely horrifically bad. Here he is, a monk in retreat. He's trying to purify his mind. And he realizes that he may have killed some muskrats as a kid, and he had completely forgotten about it. And so he's distraught. He climbs down from the retreat hovel, goes to the place where his guru is, and he says, sits in front of him. And before he says anything at all, his teacher looks at him and says, "How many of those rats did you kill anyway?" So if you actually hang out with and talk with meditators who have access to great beings, or you yourself have access to great beings, these things are sort of like I don't want to say everyday conversation, but these are just the normal things that they talk about and the normal things that happen. Because it's not actually seen as an extraordinary capability to be able to do that kind of thing. It's just one of the side effects of training in samadhi. It's a siddhi. It's a power. It's just a minor siddhi. It's like if you had slightly better vision than someone, you wouldn't get a big ego about it. Okay, let's move on. This might be unrelated to anything, but since I had a girlfriend who was a medium, it's a whole religious practice in my country. Is there any intersection between such things and Buddhism? Yeah, there are. There are, and there aren't. So Buddhism specifically says, as a general statement, for most circumstances, that people who have trained in the past in meditative concentration, in previous lives, but not this one, that's how they gain unreliable psychic capabilities in this life. And those unreliable psychic capabilities, they turn on sometimes, they turn off other times. You can have them sometimes partially, and the information you get, generally speaking, is not great. So there's that. One of the people that's been training with me now for about a year was a very serious spiritualist and had done all sorts of things in that realm, including, I think, some mediumship, or at least is quite familiar with mediumship. And one of the things that we discussed is that if you talk to those people quite closely, you'll find that sometimes the stuff that they see isn't real, and sometimes the stuff they see is real. Sometimes the stuff they see or encounter provides them with information that is real and accurate and relevant to the circumstance, etc. And sometimes it's not. And so, from a Buddhist standpoint, that type of clairvoyance, which is not super reliable, is, you could use it for a beneficial purpose. It certainly will motivate you in a different way than a person who doesn't have those capabilities, because you know that there's more stuff than just the material world. You know that probably death is not the end. You know all sorts of things from a personal standpoint that other people don't know. You know that the mind can extend beyond the boundary of the physical body. So those are very helpful things. And then when you start talking about Buddhist Tantra, there are even more overlaps, because all of the sort of, I don't really know what word to use, but there's a whole grab bag of additional practices related to dreams, related to mediumship, related to, half a dozen other things, astral travel, these kinds of things, that are all talked about, detailed, have training methods that are quite specific, etc., in the tantras. And so, yeah, for people that wanted to go that way, there are whole pathways that take you quite far down those roads and incorporate them into your training as a Buddhist. But they're very, very difficult to do. I mean, Tantra in general is not taught openly, and in general is extremely, extremely, extremely difficult to do. So, yeah, I don't know if that helps. Okay, let's move on. Is there a selfless right motivation that doesn't rely on, say, future lives? Can it be to not cause needless suffering in this life? Yeah, that's sort of what I was saying with that subcategory of the first practitioner. So here's what I did for the first 8 years or so, maybe 10 years. What I would do is I built two models in my head. One model was, here's the full-on Buddhist thing. Here's the full-on Buddhist map of the world, or map of the cosmos. Here's all the destinations they say in terms of rebirth. Here's how you get there. Here's all the karmic stuff. Here's how karma works. Blah 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 blah. So I built that whole model and I just assessed it as a model in the same way that I might assess Christianity as a philosophical system, or I might assess Hindu practices as practical or theological systems, or a Western philosophy as a philosophical system. So I just said, does this actually hold together or does it not hold together? And if it doesn't hold together, where does it fall apart? And after, I don't know, 8 or 10 years of training and study, I couldn't find any serious places where it fell apart. I mean, I had some questions, but the more I studied, the more it hung together, which I found quite surprising because I had never found anything that was like that. So I built that on the one hand. On the other hand, I built a second model where I said, okay, let's say even if it holds together perfectly, just holding together doesn't mean that something is true. So let's say that in fact it's not true. What am I taking away from Buddhism that is true, even if they're wrong about the rest of it, karma, rebirth, that kind of thing? So this second model, the secular model that I came out with, was, roughly speaking, sounded something like this. Buddhism provides you with a system of tools to train your mind so that your internal state is under your control. You can be happy. You can change your mind at will in terms of your attitude, your motivation. You can generate profound states of bliss, loving kindness, humility, charity, whatever internal state you'd like to generate. With training, you can learn how to generate it, and you can generate it when and where you need it and hold it there for as long as you need it. All of that's true. And also, even in this life, if you look at the description of Buddhist psychology, which is incredibly sophisticated, mind and mental factors, Buddhism describes your cognitive processes with great detail, describes what's wrong with your cognitive processes in great detail, and then describes how your negative emotions and negative mental states are generated based upon all of that stuff that's going wrong in your cognitive process. And as far as I could tell, all of that was accurate and true. And I still feel that way after another 10 or 12 years of study and practice. Finally, based upon that model, Buddhism says, okay, you have this cognitive system with a major error in it, and that causes all of these negative emotions and negative mental states. Since that cognitive error is inside, if you can generate the right kinds of mental activity, if you can do the right kinds of practice, basically, you can slowly uproot this problem until this problem goes away. And if you do that, logically speaking, since ignorance, so-called, misperception, what I'm calling the cognitive error, right? Since this ignorance is the root of all of these negative emotions and problems you have, which then lead to unethical behaviors and harming other people and this sort of thing, Buddhism is correct, I think, that if you remove that, you stop all the rest of it. I mean, how incredible is that? And again, logically speaking, when you do that, it should be permanent. And the reason it should be permanent is because you're not building something. You're creating a circumstance where you can cause something to cease. It's like a candle running out of oil and burning the wick down until there's no more wick and it goes out. You're taking away all the fuel. You're taking away the entire wick. That flame can't come back. And therefore, the state that you've generated internally will be absolutely perfect for your needs by logical extension. It will be nirvana, for sure. If we're speaking simply in logical terms, not practical, because from where we're seated, you can't know. But in terms of logical necessity, absolutely certain, it must be a perfectly stable, perfectly reliable state for your own needs. And then if you combine that with loving kindness, compassion, all these other things, well, then you're going to gain the capability and motivation to benefit others. All of that is true even if the moment you die, you just turn into worm food and that's the end of the road. So I built up these two models. One is, if it's only this life, does this all make sense? Is all this effort I'm putting in, is it still worth it? Yeah, it is. And if all this stuff is true, well, I can just triple down on model number one, right? I could just triple down on all the bets I've made for model number one. If the whole thing is true, well, now the stakes just became much, much, much higher, because I've already failed at this for beginningless, infinite, suffering, terrible, hellish lifetimes. So it'd be good to get out of that versus just like having a slightly better rest of this lifetime. Those are different stakes. All right. Let's see. Very interesting, because in these religions it is said that mediumship is meant for the benefit of others. So if you'd like to see full-on mediumship in Buddhism, there are the oracles of the Tibetan Buddhists, the major Tibetan Buddhist sects, major Tibetan Buddhist denominations. So there are these little tiny schools of mediumship, you could say, where these tantric practitioners invite certain deities into their bodies, and they train very intensively to be able to do this. And then those deities, through their body, can communicate various things that are needed for the denomination as a whole. So yeah, there are these sorts of things there. And colloquially across Asia, in types of Buddhism where they're blended with the local folk religions that include mediumship, you find it there too. So you'll find, I think, some forms of folk Buddhism spread across Asia that includes a fair amount of that kind of thing, including in Japan and Thailand, probably also Cambodia and other places. Okay. So where we differ from the Gnostics said this world that you're in was designed by the devil. It was designed by evil incarnate, and therefore the flesh is evil. And I would say we just don't have anything like that, really. Of course you can draw comparisons between anything, but there is no actual being who designed all this to be horrific. It's just the fact that your mind has the ability, your mind is a reality generating machine. And you do a really bad job of it. And once you realize that the mind is a reality generating machine and you do a much better job of it, it's going to be nicer. That's it. And whether or not you get to carry on with that project after this lifetime is perhaps an open question. That's what I encourage people to do. Don't say yes, don't say no. Just, it's like cooking. You have your eggs and whatever else you're eating in the morning, you have it on the pan right in front of you. And then the bone stock with all the chopped tough vegetable bits and the things you can't eat unless you boil them for 14 hours, you have that on the back burner. So just take all the stuff that's really tough. Don't say yes, don't say no. Just throw it in the pot in the back burner and just wait. And maybe someday it'll be a beautiful broth that you can drink. Maybe. If you take all that stuff that you think is too tough to digest and you just throw it in the trash, you'll never get to know if it makes a nice broth or not. So you have to just keep it in the pot. And if it turns out that after 14 hours it is in fact trash, then you throw it away anyway. But it only takes a little water to just give it a go. So likewise, it only takes just sort of suspending the no suspending that's absolute garbage. I'm not even going to consider that, right? Just suspend that and let it marinate. Let it hang out. Put it on the shelf. See, by putting the pieces together intellectually, if it holds together. See if there's any evidence that supports it in the real world or not. That kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. Well, sorry we started a little late. We have just passed the hour, and I still have some editing and so forth to do on the new video that's going to go up either tonight or tomorrow. So I've got to call it a night. But same bat time, same bat channel tomorrow. Good to see all of you. If you haven't already, do hit that like button because that'll help other people find this later. And for anyone who hasn't signed up, it makes a big difference if you sign up for the school course below. A lot more details there on the meditation techniques that I teach. And it costs about $29 a month, less than a nice meal out for yourself. And once again, that will make a huge, huge difference to me being able to continue doing this or not. Of course, I'm going to carry on teaching for free and helping people for free until I'm dead. But if I'm going to do this full time, I do need some support from the audience. So please do, if you haven't already, click the link for the school below, SKOOL, and sign up for that so that I can carry on doing this with you guys. Okay. All right. And the other thing is I'm going to probably within the next couple of months take my full book for training in meditation as a layperson and upload it as part of that course. So you'll have my entire ginormous guide to how to do this as a normal person as part of that course. The other thing is, if you want to be hardcore about this or more hardcore about it, it really helps to study this stuff in detail, and just doing it live with you guys and answering whatever questions pop into our minds won't ever give you enough momentum in understanding all the moving parts and pieces of meditation to understand the big picture. You have to take it step by step, topic by topic, ask questions, get those questions answered, and so forth. And I'm planning to park that deeper study in the school course. That's what we're going to be doing in terms of quote unquote personal mentorship and life advice. That's what I mean. I really want to take these things step by step with you guys and girls so that we can help you understand the much deeper picture of what's going on with these practices. All right. So, yeah. Hopefully I've convinced you. Okay. Thank you once again. Try not to die before the next time I see you. And I'll be on here tomorrow. Okay. Good to see you. Good night.